Hello, hello. Right on the dot at 12. So I'm just going to sit here and look pretty until we get some people coming into the room. Faron is on time. Yay. Hello, hello. Come on in. Share this with your friends on Instagram so that they can join you too in the conversation. Hey, Black and American, what's up? Faron will be joining us in a second. Do you see how to join us, Faron? Hi, Faith. Hello, hello. Are you able to request, Faron? You ready? There we go. Here he comes. Thank you.
I'm here.
Hey. What's going on?
What on my, taking a lunch, talking to you all.
Well, thank you. I appreciate taking up your time this afternoon. Even though I just saw you this morning about work, so small world always.
Right.
So just checking in because we know the times is is interesting. How have you been in this moment of COVID and strife in our country? How are you feeling?
I've been well. I think it was unexpected for especially people working from home right now. In certain ways, it's been nice. I took up gardening recently, so I've been kind of
I
doing
see
that
that. You
too.
got watermelons and stuff.
So yeah, and this is actually my first time doing it on my own. My grandfather used to have me help him do stuff as a kid, and I looked
Yeah.
at it like a chore, and I never
Yeah.
thought that I would get to the point where I like this. But
Nice. Well, nice.
I've been
That's
humble.
actually
So
probably a relaxing thing. I got 3 plants that I'm trying to take care of, and that's a stretch. So I can't imagine having a whole garden. So we want to go ahead and get started. As people come in, the first question I always ask is, tell us your story. As a CAU alum, you are near and dear to our heart because you are currently in the art world. You're a young Black man in the art world, and we're with this program at the AUC Art Collective. We're trying to create more like you. So tell us about your story at CAU because you weren't. There was no art major at the time. What did you major in? What was your experience? And kind of go into your trajectory about how you got started.
okay, so how I got started, I actually in high school I took an AP art history class, and I also worked as an apprentice with Sheila Pre-Bright.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up going to Clark in the summer on an apprenticeship with the city of Atlanta, working with Sheila, and I visited the CAU art galleries, which is now the CAU Art Museum,
Mm-hmm.
and just met the staff there. And I ended up applying for the school, and I got in. I got in like I got into SCAD and I got into Clark, but Clark gave me more money, and I don't think I could have got a better experience anywhere. In my freshman year, I didn't work in the CAU Art Museum yet. I would just kind of come up to bother them and like visit a lot.
That's how
And
it
then
starts. That's how it starts.
and then they just decided to like put me to work at the end of the year. They asked me to volunteer, and I started volunteering, and then I started working at the art museum as a docent.
Yeah.
And writing tours and learning about African American art more in depthly. And going towards my senior year, I curated my first exhibition, Negritude, which is a literary movement in France that was that mirrored the Harlem Renaissance.
Is it the picture that is it this one?
Yes. So
There we go.
in that image, that's me giving a tour of the Negritude exhibition, and the two women in the photo is actually Stephanie Height from the High Museum,
Mm-hmm.
and Julie, the American art curator at the High Museum, and Julia Forbes, the head of interpretation at the High. So I met them through through putting on that exhibit. You know, they came by to
Wow.
see it. They brought a I think they were bringing like catalogs or something by, but they saw that show and I made that connection. And it's really interesting, like how as a student you all can, you know, go through and build your network, and these are going to be people that you're going to connect with over the years.
Right. And that was one of the main things in the conversation that I had last week with Floyd. He talked about making connections and keeping them. And I think that's the most important thing that students can do. So being on campus, you basically stayed on campus after you graduated. How did you continue to, I guess, marinate a little bit in the art scene? Because you were a history major at CAU, correct?
Right.
So you have a passion for historical canon. So how did, like, melding art with that, did you just kind of immerse yourself into it and teach yourself about art history? Like, what did you do?
So,
How did you just really dive in?
so I started out as a film and photography major at
Mm-hmm.
Clark, and then I wanted to write. I'm really into storytelling, so I switched my major to history. And then when I started working, you know, on like curating exhibits, I thought about changing my major again, but I don't think my family would have allowed me to like,
Stay in
like
school 2
change
extra years.
right, like halfway through and then change my major again. So
Right.
I talked to Stephanie Evans, Dr. Stephanie Evans, who was the head of the history department at Clark, and she just, you know, she told me to do your research with a slant. You know, do your research with a slant towards art history. And
Okay.
I think that's something that can apply to someone in college who's in any major. You know, you can weave in works of art that are, you know, talking about your particular discipline, because
Yeah.
art connects with everything. And I found a way to do that, and I think it gave me a really interesting approach and an interesting insight to African American art, because you
Okay.
know there aren't a lot of graduate programs that focus strictly on African American art. You know, they're more developing now, but
Yeah.
I think you have to combine, you know, just general art history with, you know, just regular history to like kind of make your own thing and to make your own lane.
And that's crazy that we have to do that, because I mean, I went to Howard and I was an art history major there. And I guess the same like you, in high school, I was exposed to AP art history in my senior year. And so, of course, you know, they have like the quintessential Black, you know, artists that they mention. But when I got to Howard, they completely changed my idea of what art history is. And I felt almost slighted in the fact that how come in AP art history I didn't hear about all these individuals, these movements prior to. So, you know, with CAU giving you that education, you were able to kind of shift and learn it from the African American art perspective. With
Right.
that, it seems like you've stayed kind of on that track. You've only worked in the Black arts ecosystem. Is there a reason why, or have you gone out? Because from what I've seen, I feel like you work typically with Black artists and in the Black sphere. So talk about that. Is there a reason why? Does it feel safer? Because that's what a lot of people do say. And if you have worked outside of it, compare and talk about that experience a little bit.
Um, I'd say it's definitely like an art genre of its own, and it's a, you know, it's like a really unique story and a really unique artistic tradition that you know, artists are working in that tradition currently. I think, you know, the work that
Oh,
these
did it
artists
freeze?
are.
Okay, yeah.
Am I frozen?
Yeah.
With my
Oh,
mouth
no, you
open?
good. You good. You're good now.
Okay.
You're good.
So it's a really unique art making tradition that's weaved into a history and a culture that, you know, artists are working in today. You know, and as long as like Black life exists, you know, Black artists are gonna make quote unquote Black art. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, artists also, you know, they're Black artists are also, you know, they're dealing with the principles of art making, you know, just generally, but we're not, you know, in this society, we're not really afforded the notion of being normal. So
Right. That
you know,
argument, if Black art is Black art and should it be separate? Because I know some artists argue, I don't want to be known as a Black artist. I just want to be an artist. I don't, but I guess with the art industry, they automatically put them into the category of contemporary Black art. Have you experienced that duality and that notion?
I think it overlaps.
Yeah.
Get your Venn diagram out. You got like your circles. You're gonna be an artist and you're gonna be a
You're gonna be
person.
both, right?
And you can't really, like, I don't think you can really separate that. And even the fact that you have to try to force people to see that, it's a part of that reality.
Right.
I think the best, like the most concise way I've heard an artist put this is Howardina Pendell, when she said, I want people to know that I'm an artist, but I also want them to know that I'm Black. Like, I'm not ashamed of either thing. So
yeah. So when you write about Black art, obviously you can relate to it more. Talk about some of your writings. And I know you work with Black Art in America, and you write with them often. You've done some projects with them. Talk about, I guess, writing about Black art and I guess the way you relate to it.
So I actually started writing publicly about art with Black Art in America. And I also wrote an article for The Nation magazine titled How Art Inspires Change. And that was about the drawings of an artist named James Pate. But I started my own column with Black Art in America when I think I was a junior in college, called Art in Empire. So the show Empire, the first 2 seasons, I would write about the artwork in the show. So they're featuring, works from different artists in the show, like Kehinde Wiley. They got some Barclay Hendricks in there.
Yes.
And I would talk about how the show is actually written like a play, and everything in the show factored into the storyline, like the song lyrics and even the paintings in the rooms where certain scenes were taking place. So I would just kind of write about art with a pop culture slant, to just kind of get more people who are into other things to see how art relates to, to their daily lives.
And I think that's a good way to relate it, because art, I guess, for our community is, it's not as received. It's not as introduced to us at a young age. And I think that finding a way to kind of bridge the gap, I think, is important in terms of just exposure for yourself. So I think that's a great idea in terms of just relating the content to a mass instead of just, the intellect, the academic. Talk about your experience in Atlanta. Like you haven't, you're here, you're from here, correct?
Right.
You're from the
born and raised.
Right. So you haven't born and raised. So have you traveled in other places and compared what's happening in the ecosystem in Atlanta? And if you have, what do you feel is the biggest difference? And why haven't you left? Because a lot of people leave.
I mean, I do travel to other cities, but I mean, like, this is home for me. Like, I really like it here, and I don't have I think a lot of people look at contentment as a bad thing. It's cool to be content. Like, you can be content with certain things, and you can kind of grow in your own space.
Right.
But I'll even use the image you have up now as an inroad. So this is
the whole title is Our Image is Our Message, as told by a Black woman artist.
So I curated this exhibit for the March on Washington Film Festival in Washington, D.C. And it was a part of just the film festival schedule. And it was in a space at George Washington University. And this project was in collaboration with Black Art in America. And through working with Black Art in America, I learned just a lot about what's going on in the contemporary art scene. So I got to travel to, these other cities and compare to what was going on in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And when we stop in places like Houston, or we go to DC, or we go to Chicago, it would be people, coming to the venue saying, "Oh, it's a Black art show going on in here." And they would be so excited to see this. And, like, being in Atlanta, I was in a certain bubble. I had my friend group of people that liked art, and I just figured, like, we got to get people exposed to this, but it wasn't enough people interested in it for me. But once I saw how broad, this community was of people that are already participants in the art ecosystem, and also just new people being excited, knowing that these Black art shows were traveling, going to different cities, it was really eye-opening for me to do it that way. But I think Atlanta will be like my home base for
I don't disagree, because I love Atlanta and I want to stay here and help out as much as I can. Now you're at the High, right? Tell us a little bit about your experience in working as the coordinator for the Mellon Foundation, and talk about the students that you've worked with this past year.
Okay. I actually was a part of the summer academy at the High Museum. So it's a week-long training where students are introduced to museum work, they're introduced to curatorial work, and they take on these different curatorial projects like developing an exhibition, writing a label, putting on a public talk. So you learn these different things that are a part of a curator's role in a museum, but you're also exposed to, the people that, work on our marketing team, in the education department. You meet with the director of the museum, and you get like this broad overview of how things work. And I was a part of that program, and it just opened my eyes to so many different career paths. And that built my confidence that, I could have a career in the arts. And I think that was really a meaningful thing for me. So when I got word that this position was available, I was thinking like, hey, I could use this to introduce, a lot of young people like me to, to these career paths and to this body of knowledge, to go into the arts field and build their network and, and start a career that's something outside of the box that they, typically wouldn't be introduced to in college.
I mean, that's dope. I mean, so being, I know that it's not all, and that's not an all Black space. How does it feel being a Black man in that position, stewarding these students into the art world? And is there a difference that it makes for you? Is it received? Have you had any transgressions from that interaction? Like, what have you experienced being Black in that space?
I think you have to look at your experience like your superpower.
Yeah.
And you got a unique perspective. You have a unique perspective that you offer, coming from the background that you come from. Yeah. And I think, that's been like really helpful for me in my role. And it's helped me approach marketing. It's helped me approach programming. So like even, in the recruitment process, I'll consider, say like a list of HBCUs, I'll consider students from different majors outside of art history that would be interested in something like this. And just being able to communicate that and introduce these students to this work, I think that's been a way that I've been able to use my perspective and my background.
Okay. So obviously as art professionals, we have so many hats that we wear. I think we both work full-time jobs. Well, we both work full-time jobs, but we also write on the side, we curate on the side, we do a lot of art projects on the side. How do you manage that? Can you tell our students, even the ones that are watching, or even just professionals in the world right now, how do you manage being in the art world and having a full-time job and still pursuing your passion? Because I think at one point you said you were even you were working under an appraiser at some point. So you're trying to kind of attack the art world as an appraiser, curator, writer. How are you managing all these other side endeavors with working full time?
I'm trying to figure that out. How do I manage? Like I'll have like a busy moment in my like regular 9 to 5 job, and people will like offer certain projects, and I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. Okay, I'll do it. Yeah. And once I accept it, I go through like a day or two of thinking like, why am I trying to do all of this stuff? But it's like I have to. It's like I have to. Like I have to create, and I have to be, engage in the art world and staying plugged into how things are going. And I think they both play into each other. I think you have to know what your bandwidth is. Like, don't take on too many things at one time. But a word of advice I've been given, I can't remember who told me this, but always have a weekend project. Always have something else that you're working on, at least one thing, that
outside
you can be
of your full time. Yeah.
Right, outside of your full time that you could be proud of, because you never know what that could develop into. And certain projects you might, devote your weekends to, and it'll become a bigger thing than you initially planned for it to be.
That's true. So does it ever interfere with your full-time job? Because I know there's some things like during the day that I'm like, okay, how am I supposed to manage this project and still show up for work? Because right now we're virtual, so I feel like we can get away with it a little bit. But
Right.
how do you, like, when you're in that position where you're busy and you have to travel for, for the Mellon Curatorial Fellows, or you have to travel for, when you went to DC for the March on Washington, did you have to use your vacation? What
Yeah.
conversations are you
So
having in your workplace? Do they know that you have outside endeavors, and or do they support that?
I invite
Nice.
my colleagues to my events.
That's
So
mature.
right. So I would say even like I've taken vacation time, to go down to Art Basel with Black Art in America.
Yeah.
I've taken vacation time to go to DC to, put on a show at George Washington University. I'm like, these are great opportunities.
Right.
And, I've also taken vacations to just chill and just relax because, you'll go crazy trying to do all of these things. So
Yeah.
you have to respect your own bandwidth, or, your body will tell you when to rest.
Yeah. What are you reading right now? Because I know I think you're always, I think your brain is always moving. What are you reading right now to stay in this moment and maybe, or to stay connected to the art world?
I would say I've more so been reading just different articles on how people are staying engaged in
Responding to
museum
it.
work
Yeah.
virtually, and just responding to COVID and responding to just the political climate. So I've been more so reading
Yeah.
articles
There's so much content right
about
now for
that.
that.
So yeah, a lot of content for that. And as
Yeah.
far as books, I'm actually reading a book that's not an art book. I'm reading a book called The Ascent of Money, and it's like a financial history of
Mm.
the world. But it's some art stuff in there too. They're talking about
I
art in
mean,
the
the art
National
world is
Network.
financial.
So,
The art world is financial, so that makes sense. That makes sense. I personally don't care about the financial side, but my brain just doesn't work that way in terms of the art world. Are you looking at any advanced degrees, since you're kind of taking all this information in and you're doing all these side projects? Are you looking at going further and getting an advanced degree now?
yeah, I'm considering it. So I've been,
Hmm.
just kind of like looking at some schools and
Yeah.
thinking about how I want to approach getting into a program. Do I still want to work full time, or do I want to take time to just be a student again?
Yeah.
So just
So
kind
what
of
kind of programs are
figuring
you
that
looking
out.
at? Because I mean, we like to, I know with some of I think we have about 10 seniors graduating from the ACR Collective this year. I know they're either thinking about working, going straight into work, or going into post grad. Do you have any advice for trying to make that decision and balancing out and seeing where you want to stay in school or work?
I would say so. I work with a lot of students who are going through that
Yeah.
process. So I'm like in an interesting space where I've learned a lot of tricks and tips for like researching where you want to go. So I would say you definitely want to visit the school if you can.
Hmm.
Speak with the professors that you're looking to work with, and try to go into it like an apprentice. Like, see, like, is this a place where I'd be comfortable? Can I activate my network here in a way that's going to be productive for me?
Yeah.
Will this degree? I wouldn't even say look at it as will this degree get me into the space where I want to be, but
Yeah.
will this experience make me a better person, make me a better thinker about what I do? Because I think you
Right.
can find out how to connect yourself to the space you want to be in if you come at it with the right mindset.
You definitely can. So I guess being in Atlanta, being from here, you have connections that you've already made, friends that are probably artists, curators alike. We've talked outside of our workspaces and out of this space. Um, can you talk about working in the Black arts community here in Atlanta? And I know you have, this is a picture of one of the shows you did with Gerald Lavelle. Talk a little bit about working with your own friends in this city and what you feel like Atlanta is doing for the Black arts community.
So this is an installation shot from Gerald Lavelle's first solo exhibit, Sylvia Sylvia, which is
Mhm.
titled which is the same title of the painting, Straight Back, if you can
In the
squint and see
dead
it.
center.
So this is at Wish Gallery in Little Five Points, and the show was presented in collaboration with Black Art in America.
Hmm.
And I actually met Gerald through the Black Art in America Fine Art Show in Philadelphia. So I took vacation time and I went up, to work on this show. And I
Yeah.
met Gerald I took an interest in his work. We became
Yeah.
like fast friends. And, while we were just talking about art and just hanging out in the city, he was like, hey, I got a show coming up. Would you be cool, helping me with the curation and like getting things ready for the show? I really, I've looked over your work and I like what you're doing. And, I agreed to it. And we worked on this show. It did really well. A lot of people came out. I think there were like over 200 RSVPs. And if you can see, like,
Nice.
we're not allowed to crowd in spaces like that anymore.
No,
so.
not anymore, unfortunately. Unfortunately, I went to a show at Wish, Horace Emotip is at Wish right now, and we had to have only like 10 people inside. So it's very different from the openings that we experienced before. I guess with the last 5 minutes, the one question I'm asking, since you're an Atlanta native, this is in kind of immersed in the community. What do you want to see for Atlanta in terms of the Black arts ecosystem here? And what does it look like for you? If you could see, 3 to 5 years, 10 years, what does that look like for you in terms of what you're doing in your role or whatever role you want to move towards? And what do you want to see for the Black arts community?
I think more artists live here than most cities I've visited. So there are like a lot of artists living in the city. But I do think it would be interesting to see an increase in artist patronage in the city. Yeah. So like a lot of artists feel like they have to connect with like a New York gallery to sell their work. And I think it would be, great to like activate more collectors here in the city.
Yeah.
And also to just have like a defined network of just a variety of like art spaces to visit, and just more like collectors groups and art appreciation groups of people that could just kind of go out and see what's going on in the city, like make multiple stops.
Yeah.
And just appreciate being in this space.
So more space, more consumerism in the arts. And where do you see yourself in the next 5 years in terms of your art career?
The next 5 years. I would like to do what I'm doing now, but just on a bigger level. So,
Gotcha.
Educating people about art, writing about art, and producing around art. So like exhibitions, content, like just special events and just having some notoriety around that and just doing it on a larger scale.
Right. So congratulations. I know this was last year, but you got an award for the Curator of the Year for the Hammonds House for their inaugural award ceremony, for projects that you've done, in the recent years. What are you working on now that you feel that you want to speak about now? If you can reveal anything, because I know sometimes we like to move in silence. So feel free to share kind of what you're working on now, any projects you want to share, and anything you want to give us a tip on.
I'm in a discussion about writing for a catalog for an artist, but it's not finalized yet. So that's still being worked out. Certain in-person things got slowed down with COVID, but I've been really embracing, being virtual. Mm-hmm. So this year I'm also I'm not sure if I'm a second round judge for an arts award. I'm not sure if I can say which one. I got to go through the emails.
Okay,
but,
that's fine.
It's an artist grant, and I'll be doing virtual studio visits as a second round judge to see which artists are going to get a grant award.
That's pretty cool. I guess until Courtney comes, tell us about as a curator doing studio visits virtually. Have you done any so far, and how has that been?
So with the fellows at the High, we visited with Fahamu Piku in his new studio space.
Yeah.
And, we got to see his new work. I wouldn't say, I would say that an in-person visit is obviously better.
Right.
But just having the virtual visit, it gives you access to the artists in their space. And the conversation can lead into a lot of the same directions that it would lead in an in-person studio visit. So the students really embraced it. They learned a lot from it. Fahamu was like a great host to us. He was an open book, an open door.
Yeah. He's always
questions.
A good talker.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Any last words you'd like to leave as an Atlanta native and CAU alum, anything that you'd like to leave our students and our followers today?
I would say, you're working in this space, like try to learn how the whole art ecosystem interacts. Learn, what the collectors do, what the artists do, what the museum institutions do, and just see how all of those things overlap and where you
Yeah.
fit in, and how you can support artists and also support your interests. As a person who's into art.
Yay. Thank you. We appreciate you. Thank you so much, Faron, for joining us today. In about 2 seconds, he's going to jump out, and then we have Courtney Brooks coming in, guys. Thank you for joining us, Faron.
All right, you all.
Bye.
Bye.
So we got Courtney Brooks coming up next. Go ahead and send the request button, Court, and let's get you in here so we can continue your conversation. Stay with us, guys. Courtney's coming. There she is.
What's
Oh my
up?
God. Hi, honey.
How goes it?
It's going. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you so much for
Good.
me.
Oh,
And I
I'm
was
so
like,
excited. I wish I could hug you. I need a Courtney hug. Oh my goodness. So, okay, first question, how are you during all of this? I know we've spoke, but the people don't know, but how are you? How are you managing as a creative? What are you feeling like?
I'm adjusting. I
Yeah.
am adjusting. I am shifting. I'm reflecting. All the above. Um, I was burnt out for a little bit, but I'm back on the ball and trying to get the
Yeah.
ball rolling. But I definitely took time to do some self-care and figure out, I want to go where I want to go, and spending time with family and just loving on myself.
Good.
Just figuring out what's next.
Good. Nice. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit. We usually start with like an origin story.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you? Where are you from? And how are you in the space? Maybe your title, how are you in the space right now? And then we can go into a little bit deeper into your work.
Okay. Well, originally I'm from Denver. I became an adult and went to school in Houston for about 2 years and then moved to Atlanta. So I've been in
Mhm.
Atlanta for about 16 years now. So artist, friend, daughter, lover, all the above.
All those things.
Love creating, connecting with other creatives, and yeah, that's pretty much the basis of who I am.
So I wanted to interview you. This is the Atlanta edition, and one reason why I wanted to compare you with Faron is because he's an Atlanta native, AUC alum, and you're an Atlanta transplant. I guess that's what the word they use. But you have completely it's crazy. I didn't even know you weren't from here, and that's how immersed you are. Like you literally have adapted to
Yeah,
Atlanta, where you have just become a pigeonhole of the community. So I wanted to understand kind of you coming here as a person from not from here. What did you see in terms of, because you're young, so 16 years, obviously you're only like 16 years old. So you were a baby when you got here, right?
I was,
How did
black don't crack. So I moved here when I was 20. So if y'all will be quick with the math, you can be, but I actually moved here when I turned 21.
right. But still, I wasn't going to tell your age. I was going to let you do that. I wasn't going to say that. But I guess coming here as a young creative, what did you see? Did you know that you wanted to enter the creative world when you got here? And how did you do it? How did you just dive in?
Yeah, definitely. So just even as a young girl, like I've always been fascinated with Black culture, and
Yeah.
growing up in Denver, they always say there's Black people in Denver. Yes, there's Black people in Denver. But I was raised during my summer breaks and spring breaks watching BET and MTV, and always like in love with Atlanta. I want to go to Atlanta, and I always wanted to go to HBCU, and so
Yeah.
I started my freshman year at Texas Southern in Houston. So going to Houston first and
Mhm.
seeing my family there and just being around more Black people, just like, oh, this is amazing. But when I came to visit Atlanta, I was like,
You
yo,
got stuck.
I came to Atlanta, and my cousin took me to Funk Jazz Cafe,
Mm-hmm.
and it was music and art and vendors. I was just like, yo, this is where I need to be. And I was like, when I turn fun, I'm moving to Atlanta. And so I did just that. And so I knew that I wanted to focus on art anyway. So I originally went to school for graphic design. I knew I never wanted to go corporate, but I wanted to focus on my art. I wanted to have a artistic cafe, art gallery, eventually teach art classes, all the above. So anyway, I was going to be in this creative space. That was a route that I was going to take. So being in Atlanta and just seeing all this beautiful Blackness, beautiful Black excellence that you see with just the entrepreneurship of artists, like being able to physically touch and talk to artists that were doing their thing full time was an inspiration to me. I remember just being in class at school and coming across Maya Bailey's my MySpace page. And I was like, yo, who's this artist? And he like
that tells our age.
MySpace. Like, I ended up working at a lounge in Peter Street, off of Peter Street in Castleberry, and Maya would come to the restaurant that I used to bartend at, and I'm like, oh, look at my art. Like I literally kind of connected with him and would try to show him my work, and that was honestly the first place that I showed my art and had my first show. So I just put my aligned with what my vision was. Even when I was in school, just serving and bartending, I knew that I wanted to be in the art world.
So one of the things that continues to be said is that connection and networking is highly important into, I guess, to me, what seems to be the Black arts ecosystem of Atlanta. How has that played for you? I mean, how do you maintain the connections? How do you make the connections? And how do you use them for your growth?
Well, like I said, being in the serving industry, that is art, because I worked at a space that was catering to the culture and catering to like DJs and comedians, and then I was able to bring my art during the Castleberry Art Stroll, and connecting with my guests as a bartender, I'm like, oh, I'm an artist too, and I would sell like, my cards. Like I built up a so I'm serving you a drink. I might not remember your name, but I remember what you drink, and so I would drink and give you whatever you needed, but we would talk about art. And I met a lot of artists that way, a lot of DJs, which helped play into when I started curating, because I'm like, oh, I have this roster of DJs that I could pick from to come DJ my event. And again, just submitting my work to different art shows, growing with artists that were on the same playing field as me, and then later curating their artwork to see us grow in these different paths, but still aligned in the same creative field. So just becoming cool with people, and friendship, doing studio visits, encouraging one another. At one point I had like little get-togethers at my house, and we're just like, oh, come over, I'll have food, and you guys
got your art up.
Just kind of creating these spaces for people to work and get to know one another.
Great. So you were, you got to be the curator at Arts Exchange for the Sinclair Gallery, correct? You did a lot of great shows there. Most of them are our friends and colleagues that we see often. How was it working with your friends in the Black arts community? Did you, and also transitioning from the artist yourself to a curator role? Was that difficult? How was that transition for you, and especially working with your friends in that space?
Right. So I've always felt that your passion is going to attract your tribe, right? Mm-hmm. So what you're doing, you don't follow people, you follow your passion, and the people that you follow your passion, those people are going to come along. So you're going to be connected or have like the same vision as you. And so when I caught on to Arts Exchange, one of my art friends was like, hey, Arts Exchange is looking for a curator, and maintaining those relationships. People are going to, do opportunities that, may not fit them, but they was like, I know who would be great for the job. So those relationships, people are going to look out for you. And so
Right.
this, heads up about this curating position. I met with the president of Art Exchange
Yeah.
and Alice Lovelace. And so when I went to
There you are. I see you.
So I went to they were still under construction in East Point, and she showed me the space, and I was just like, I could do something with this, because I'm coming from doing pop-up shows.
Yeah.
One night events. Like I said, I would curate. How I started curating was I curated my own solo show. So just trying to get my artwork out after being rejected to plenty of shows that I submitted to.
Yeah.
Let me show my artwork. And so when I started curating my own space, it prepared me for the future, right? So I already had vendors and live performances and DJs. And so starting to work with the artists that I knew when I got into a space that would be a little bit more long-term, I was going to bring people that I was already coming up with. Yeah. And so with like a three show contract, and it off from there. And so all the connections that I had acquired over the years,
you just brought in.
I'm down. Like, whatever you got going on, I'm down. I was like, yes. Prior to getting onto Art Exchange, I had probably curated about 10 or 11 shows prior to that, just literally all pop-ups.
Yeah.
2017 through 2018. Yeah. So within like a year span, I had curated so many shows that just worked in my favor. And so the picture right here was at the Collective show that I actually coordinated. So I wasn't the curator. Mike Harris was the curator of that show, but I was able to work with collectors, and I learned so much from that experience. Like, from the development of the catalog that came from that, learning how to get insurance for the work. There was so much that work, and there was so valuable that people don't be like, y'all don't have a security guard outside? Like, y'all don't realize.
I think that's one of the things I asked. Yeah, I was like, this is intense. The collectors, and what made me upset about that show is like, there are Black collectors that exist in our backyards and that have these works of art, and this show literally put a spotlight on them. Like, we do collect Black art, we do collect ourselves, and we do have the money to make the investment into to serving our community. I think that's one great thing. Coordinated or not, or curated or not, it was a great spotlight on what the Atlanta community has the potential to be, and what we can offer. And I think that was a great lesson for you in speaking to, like, it's not all curation that always doesn't entail, exhibition design doesn't always entail just curating the art and telling the story. There's a real business side to it. Yes. So you're speaking about insurance, which is highly important, especially in the art world. You're speaking about coordinating with artists and different people and collectors. That logistic is those logistics are very, very important when it comes to curating. I know you went, so you did pop up to gallery to public. That's a big range. How compare those? I mean, we'll talk about the public art because we have that. I have the whole little image for that project. I really want to talk about Journey of a Black Girl, but talk about your transition from pop up to, a white box gallery. How was that transition? I mean, it seems like you effortlessly did it because of what I saw, but going from pop up to, I think you did the Village Market ATL. You did a show with them. Talk about going from a pop up to the difference between the two and curating the two different styles.
Well, it's very hands-on. Like you said earlier when you were talking to Faron, like, we wear so many hats. So I'm a self-taught curator. Yeah. Like I said, I have a vision. I've had this roster of artists that I know and friends, and I was like, yo, you have to work. We're going to put the show together. So, I'll come up with a narrative or come up with a concept for a show, and I pick the artist that I feel like will fit, or do an artist call. So, for example, one of my first shows that I curated was a Biggie show, tribute to Biggie, Notorious, which I was approached by a party promoter. And that was a great learning experience for me because I ended up getting about 25 artists, everyone doing these custom made pieces that was dedicated to Biggie, but it was at like a restaurant, and it was more of a party feel. And I'm like I'm putting my heart in but how to get down, hot footballs, put the work up within one day.
Yeah.
Come to find out that, you know, there's VIP sections and they're putting up velvet ropes. And I'm just like, how people
This is
art? This is not for a wall, okay? Like, I want people to buy the art. And actually, MK Design, she sold her piece to Ed Lover. So I was happy that someone sold some work, right?
Yeah.
But other than that, it was great exposure. It was a great learning experience for me to work with. Actually, it was James Evans.
Okay.
But so from that, I was like, okay, I know that if I curate an event, I want it to be focused just on the art. And I want art collectors and I want artists to sell their work. So the next show that I came up with was my Pac show. It's my Tupac show. And I was like, if I did Biggie, I have to do Tupac because I love hip hop. So I have to, I have to do my passion in there some way. And so that was, you know, literally downtown, another fantastic group of about 25 artists that, you know, submitted their work. And I had, you know, the drinks, I had movie, you know, a film. It was just all aspects of DJ. It just felt good. And so I was like, from there, I can do this. And in between time, I was teaching art classes. So that was like my main gig. But, you know, on the weekend, like Faron said, I was putting together these other shows. So from there on, it's just like pop up after pop up. And then when I, you know, built up that resume, you know, like I said, one of my friends, like, I have an opportunity for you. Someone needs to cure. And so when I came into the art exchange and saw that space, I was just like, yes, finally, because that's what I was trying to figure out, like, how do I, you know, these pop-ups are cool, but it's so much work. It's so intense to get all this artists. You plan all this work just for one night, and then it comes down. And so it's fun, but it was just kind of like tugging at my heart. Like, I want this work to stay up longer because I feel like a lot of people need to experience this, and I need to be able to tell these stories and then be able to talk to the visitors and, you know, engage with the art a little bit more and, you know, tell the artist story so they can have a little bit more recognition. And so our Sinclair Gallery gave me the opportunity to, like, engage with the community and, you know, bring younger generations in, all types of generations in. Because so grown to, like, you know, 21 to like 45 graphic. But as far as when I got into the art exchange, it was family friendly. So kids can come and see it. And so that was that really dear to my heart, to see little kids light up and be excited about the pictures or on the wall. And I will be with my phone taking pictures of them. Little kids.
No, that's dope. You definitely created an experience while you were there. And it was, and I was so proud of you just to see the work that you're doing there, because we need more spaces like that all around the city for our community to access the artwork. So so now this last year you went into public art, right? You are the first curator in residence for Atlanta for the Art of the Beltline of Atlanta. I mean, that was like, sis, you did that. So talk about that project. Like, let me see if I can find the picture. There's the picture.
So, this project is so dear to my heart, and I feel like it's become a movement, and it's gonna.
It is. No, it completely is. It completely is.
So in the midst of, you know, another artist friend of mine, Tamika Grooms, has sent me a DM, which is like, you need to apply for this curatorial residency for the Beltline. And so I'm in the midst of curating the art exchange. I had like, you know, 2 shows I was working on. Then I was a part of the Village Market. I painted a mural for their art show. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. Came to the last day, the deadline of me filling out this proposal. Luckily, I was, you know, already prepared. I had all my CV updated. I had all my photos, but I didn't have my concepts together. I was like, well, what am I going to do? So I had to, like, make sure I had my sketches and concepts scanned in. Literally within 5 minutes of the deadline, I got everything in. Wow. And I luckily emailed the coordinator as well as submit on the website. The email got sent back and was like, oh, your files are too large. And I was like, no. Oh, sorry, I don't know what's going on. So I literally was like, no, it got sent back. Like, I don't think it went through. And so I'm like crying. I'm like stressed because I've been working so hard. And I was like, this is something I wanted to do for me. This is my first time presenting to myself, you know, send a proposal out for a residency. And so I was just kind of just like shot into the game. Like, I was like, oh, if I get it, I get it. I don't really know if it went through. A couple weeks later, I got the email saying congratulations. It was a testimony. All I did was like break down and cry. I was like, God, like, I can't believe I got this, but I can believe I got it because I've been putting in the work, right? And so you have to celebrate those victories and have, you know, confidence in yourself, because you can get that imposter syndrome. Like, yo, do I really deserve this? Like, yeah, Courtney, you've been putting in work. And so when I got it, I was like, I never fathomed doing public art. It just never crossed my mind. So when I got it, and I was like, okay, well, what next? What am I going to curate for public art?
Like, what happened? What now?
What now? So it was probably like June I found out that I got it, and then the residency started, was going to start October of 2019 through March 2020. And so in that time frame, you know, I'm still working, putting all my efforts and energy into the arts exchange, which they had gave me, you know, a longer contract of being the gallery director for the rest of the year. So I was like, okay, great opportunities, both these opportunities. I'm working in the gallery space. Now I need to focus on how I'm going to do public art. So I'm pretty much working 2 jobs at the same time. I was able to go to Brooklyn with Charmaine Mendenfield and Angela Davis Johnson. Tony Blackman was this Black woman creative team to paint a mural for the census. And so we're like at a, you know, coffee table, like having breakfast, just talking about our journeys as Black women and creatives. And I was like, that's it. Yo,
like,
that's about
yes.
our journey.
Yes.
Like, because we have similarities, especially as creatives, like what we go through, and as Black women, like what we, you know, experience growing up. And I was just like, first of all, our hair, we always have a hair story. So this picture that you see right here, I came up with the idea of just like, oh, what if I created like these braids that could hang from a bridge? So these are like 15-foot long braids.
Yep, that's how they.
And yeah, hanging from the bridge. And this is on the South Side Trail of the Beltline. And so I was like, yo, okay, so to create these braids, I got to figure out how I'm going to get these braids done. And that's when the programming came in. I was like, well, I'm going to invite Black women to come and help braid. Like, we can have story time and sisterhood. And that was all what Journey Black Girl it was about, with these different phases. So I was like, we can come together, create these braids. We can eat, we can drink, we can do whatever we want in these different spaces. Thankful again to Maya Bailey. When I was just a fan, he became a friend and he let me use his space. So that was the first installation that she was a part of at People Station. And we created these braids. And the second installation was at the Art Exchange. And the third installation was at Natural's Hair Salon at the Met. And that was like, again, a community circle. We was able to, you know, create these braids and sit down and talk. And so once we got these braids together and I snapped them to the track, and I was like, okay, I got to put them on the Beltline. And so it just became this installation, this fiber art installation that blew in the wind, and people can ride their bikes under and walk through and see these braids in the air. And I intentionally put these different colors and using yarn to put these different colors in, because, you know, Black women are always seen as deemed ghetto for having colors in their hairs when other cultures can do whatever they want. But Black women, we are the queen of our hair story, right? So we can do whatever we want. And I wanted to like focus on that. And the Crown Act was, you know, coming to play, trying to pass this law for hair discrimination. So I wanted to focus on that as well. So it's just like, yo, our hair is important. We can be ourselves the way our hair naturally grows, whatever kind of style we rock it, you know. So I wanted to focus on that within the first phase. He's pausing. I apologize.
It's okay.
So these baby girls in this picture, photo from Timber House Films. It was important for me to include Black men on this project as well. So behind the scenes, there were a few Black men that helped document this process. And my project was supposed to open up on March 14th. March 13th. Well, before COVID was like, no, you are not having this. I was just shot, okay? Because it was 6 months planning, all this work put into it. So many people was willing to help and volunteer, and then the day comes and I had to cancel. And I was just like, this is horrible.
It was a sad day.
It was, but shout out to Kimberly Lucas Stewart, because she has been a ride or die. She's been supporting me since day one, and she's like, yo, we're still gonna celebrate. So she came out the day of the event, and we took pictures and just show love, and she has her girls in there too. That was part of the project. So when I had to pivot and go virtual, I was like, let me get what I originally saw, and we get this documented, and it's gonna live in the virtual space. And so I reached out to my creative mom friends, and I was like, yo, who had daughters. I was like, I really want them to be part of this project. Let's talk about our hair. And so this group of little girls came to talk about why they love their hair. So this was part of that day. And yeah, so that was very special.
So, and now the project has evolved. You created a beautiful video with Melissa Alexander and Angela Davis Johnson. I couldn't play the video, but this is an image. I wish it would show the whole thing. Y'all just have to go to her Instagram to view some of the video and the images, because what they created together was completely magical. So you took Journey of a Black Girl, you know, into talking about your crown, into this full emotional and spiritual just project. Talk about how it evolved to this point, and where do you see it continuing?
Yeah, so the name of the braiding project was called This Crown Belongs to Us.
Yep.
And because we need to like adorn our crowns and just love ourselves from our head to our heart to our feet. Like everything about us, we need to just embrace, just being a Black woman. So working with Angela and Melissa, originally the performance was supposed to be under the Beltline. So of course, again, we had to pivot. And Angela was located in New Orleans during the quarantine. And so, you know, she's a mama, so it was easier for us to come to her to finish this project, because it was very passionate for us. Like everyone was like, yo, this is important. We want to get this done. So we drove to New Orleans, like, you know, 7 hours away a day, came right back. We filmed. I wasn't even supposed to be a part of the project. That wasn't the original vision, but Melissa was like, yo, I had this vision. I need you to be in the scene.
Shout out to Melissa for that.
It was just very emotional and healing. And that was like the third phase, because originally Journey of Black Girl started off as adolescence and then transitioned to womanhood. So this was the third, actually the second phase. And just talking about just, you know, trauma and releasing that generational trauma and how to heal yourself, and giving thanks to our ancestors. So that was what that project was about. And you can definitely see it on YouTube. Yeah. You can see the original video. But yeah, that was an out of body experience to say, yo, I knew that this was going to go beyond the Beltline, because we literally traveled during a pandemic
to finish the project. Yeah.
Finished this project and came back, and it turned out beautiful. And I'm in the midst of still, you know, not creating content, still have content from that project. And just trying to, you know, revamp how I'm going to rebrand this concept. So
you're saying second phase as if there's another one. So
the third phase was focusing on our fashion. And I wanted to tap into Black women-owned businesses, entrepreneurship. And so I worked with Vintage Block Party, 3 different Black stylists, you know, who, you know, sell vintage clothing. And so we had like an online fashion show, talked about their journey. And I had a mural planned that was going to be the big reveal. And we're going to have like food trucks and DJs and like outside shopping. And of course that didn't happen, but it can still happen. It will happen. But yeah, so I just was able to work with so many awesome, amazing artists on this project. And I just definitely want to include them for future projects, because ultimately I want this to become a documentary, and I want to travel with it because I feel like it's important. I love Atlanta, and I feel like I know so many people here that if I can just take their talents, and then I get to meet somebody else, other artists that can be a part of this project, that's just near and dear to my heart. So yeah.
Nice. So I can't wait to see what else you have planned. We have about 2 more minutes, and this is a question from Destiny, one of our students at the AEC Art Collective. She said, space for shows is so important. How did you find and secure venues for your shows when you were starting out?
Again, it's all about relationships and connections. You just think about the places that I thought about the places that I hung out, and that was like, okay, when I'm literally hanging out or looking for spaces, it's like I can see myself hanging out here. I've already hung out here. If you see a space that you can see a vision for, then just approach the owner and then just tell them what you want to do. And a lot of times, 10 out of times, they're going to be on board with it, because if you have a following and they're going to want people to come to their space. I would work with South Fulton Art Center, and we did the All Black Everything show. And that was, you know, further out South Fulton, but I was able to co-curate an event out there that I wasn't familiar with. Someone reached out to me because they were already following what I was already doing. So just because with your work, because you don't know who's watching you, and so people are going to want to work with you. But as far as like securing the space, just vet out the spaces that you like to hang out at, and
Yeah.
that can lead to like bigger and better things.
Great. I think we have like 30 seconds left. So I want to thank you for coming. Any last words for the city of Atlanta?
Fila.
Right. Right.
I really do love Atlanta. I love how we